everyone, and welcome back to Impi, your friendly catamaran. Those of you who follow along with our videos will know that we had sailed into the roaring 40s for Tasmania. For those who have not been following us, we are a couple, Brent and Ana, sailing around the world, having left South Africa some 7 years ago now and have been sailing full-time ever since. Sailing down to Tasmania may be something many local Australians do, and so do a few international sailors, but these are few and far between, with Tasmania being off the charts for many doing a circumnavigation. And it's a pity really, because sailing in these waters is an experience to behold. Our weather window and passage down was a good one. Of course it can always be better, but Impi handled it in her stride, and we were happy to finally arrive in beautiful Tasmania.
In our previous video, episode 3, Sailing into the Roaring 40s, we share some basic information of our planning for sailing from Sydney to Tasmania. Part of our planning is to always have a fallback position should things go wrong. And one such fallback position would of course be the Furneaux group of islands, and in particular we considered Flinders Island.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion.
Without local knowledge of this place, Australians in the know advised us that entry here can be very difficult, especially on account of shifting sandbanks and the steep shelf from deep to shallow seas. Waves can stand up in certain conditions where forces oppose each other.
They say I'm in too deep. It's been 2 years.
To complicate matters, should one be able to navigate into Franklin Sound, crossing the aptly named Pot Boil Shoal, then one also needs to consider very challenging seabed conditions, with locals recommending the use of only a traditional anchor to penetrate the invasive weed species. Of course, there would also be those strong tides and currents, which flow with considerable power and on a rule of thumb flow west on a flooding tide and towards the south on ebbing tides. East and west winds are considered some of the worst to encounter down here, as they bring in sea fog and can accelerate without warning. For Impi, we were considering the anchorage around Babel Island as our go-to position, although we were warned to be extremely vigilant, especially when a changing weather is imminent. Care needs to be taken again in east and southeast winds because of a localized low-pressure system area to the east of the island, and these low-pressure gradients could occur when least expected and are seldom forecast. Extremely powerful and destructive winds can develop here. Our plan was to visit the region on our return trip across the Bass Strait, and fortunately for us, we were able to sail past the Furneaux group for Wineglass Bay. Well, we arrived at Wineglass Bay on the setting sun and experienced the wind shift now out of the northeast. A local yacht called us on VHF 16 and suggested not dropping anchor there on account of huge swells that rush around the anchorage in these winds, and to rather opt for entry through Shooten Passage for Brian's Beach. Well, that was fun in the dark of night and running swells, but it was great advice and provided for some much needed rest for the night.
We love, we can be free. Gotta follow your heart and stand tall and fear can come to hold you back and ground you on your knees. You were born to thrive.
As beautiful as Crockett's Bay is, and it's really beautiful, the seabed is covered with an invasive species of weed which makes anchoring somewhat challenging here, especially if one wants to spend a few days without dragging. Now for this reason we seek out a sandy patch between the green and drop anchor there. Ana says she can see the anchor neatly dug in, and we think, well, with that all will be fine.
Colors in the sky and the sun shining down on my skin. Is all I need. time. Keep me alive.
Well, it's hard to believe, but this beautiful bay is named after Edward Crockett, who was appointed as mine manager overseeing 60 convict labourers from the Australasian Smelting Company formed back in 1848. In 1850, 130 tonnes of coal was being raised per week from shafts sunk near the shore. Well, the mine was sublet to Crockett, who continued operations here for a number of years.
In colors in the sky, and the sun shining down on my skin. Is all I need.
Something we found interesting is that Schutten Island is located within the center of the predicted global climate change hotspot. This makes it an ideal location to conduct baseline surveys and ongoing monitoring of marine flora and fauna around its coastline.
We love, we can be free. Follow your soul's plans and follow your path. And we love, we can be free. Follow your heart and follow your
Yeah, so a very beautiful beach, beautiful walks over here, Schutten Island. This is the northern side of Schutten Island, and it's absolutely fantastic. We don't pick up too much weed on the anchor chain. Right, Anna's getting a hook prepared here. This is because
Probably a lot of seaweed. It's the weed.
whoa, there's a lot of weed in here. Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to just keep coming with it, eh? We really tried hard not to get this weed. We tried really hard, and somehow it just wraps around the chain. It's a pity, actually. We don't want to destroy the environment here, but you drop it in sand, and due to the fine string-like nature of this algal weed, in spite of taking care to drop the anchor in a clear patch of sand, the sweep of the chain about the anchor gathers the weed, which then slowly works its way down to the anchor. Well, this makes for a situation where the anchor can become fouled and no longer have effectiveness, which is why many locals recommend the use of a standard fisherman type anchor, which penetrates well and does not gather as much weed. Well, we saw many boats leaving the anchorage with a green beard. They all seem to have this problem, and a large fishing gaff seems to work well to remove it.
Don't get me tangled up.
Well, a great visit down to Schutten Island, but something one always wants to do after passages at sea is stock the boats again with supplies like food. Well, locals advise that Coles Bay is the best spot for this. Maritime and Safety Tasmania, also known as MAST, the local authority there, have courtesy moorings for visitors and therefore no need to anchor in poor holding conditions. Well, these moorings are free, but one is limited to 4-hour stays unless arriving after 5 p.m, where one is then free to stay the full night. Okay, for folks watching the video and are intending to sail here, just for your interest, we managed to find 2 supply stores here. One located near the jetty and a bit more expensive, but better stocked than the other, which was a fair walk away. To obtain reasonably priced wine, it was best to purchase it from the pub next door to the second shop, while we were there, that is, so worth the walk. Okay, well, we had used up our 4 hours on the mast mooring, so we headed for the bay next door, Promise Bay. Well, we got some serious weather coming in today. We've got very strong northeasterlies actually. So we're ducking away here in Promise Bay. And it's very beautiful, but the problem with Promise Bay is that we have got westerlies and southwesterlies forecast tonight. And this is not a good spot to be. So we're going to have to probably move on. A beautiful beach here. There's a little island over here. The wind is pumping outside, and we're just sailing for another little spot to take cover. I don't think we're going to be able to take much cover tonight because the winds are switching out of the east all the way around to the west to the southwest. It's just on a handkerchief sail here. Folks, this is just too much fun without a word of caution. Now, when sailing in strong wind conditions with a sail up front, we have found it very important to maintain tension on the main sheet as well as the topping lift, as this pulls back on the top of the mast, keeping tension especially on the forestay. The furlet tube is made up of sections which mate neatly into each other and are bolted together. Any slack here will see the sections flexing and wearing, and eventually the bolts will work themselves loose. Now the bolts here act more as a locking mechanism than a support structure. So if the internal mating surfaces wear, even the replacement of bolts will see one eventually having to replace them again and again. Now, especially when furling the sail away, one wants to make sure to keep enough vertical tension on the tubes to reduce flexing during the turning action of furling. This practice will save downtime, frustration and money, and is really great for the rig. Absolutely amazing! Lovely stuff, man! How much? 42, I can't really reach in. Okay folks, I know, no safety shoes, no harness, no life jacket. What am I thinking? Please don't do this at home.